Hello and welcome back to Widowed AF. You're here with your host, Rosie Gill-Moss, and I am delighted to welcome to the podcast Eileen O'Brien, all the way from Scotland, I'm guessing from the accent, Eileen.
Yes, that's right.
Welcome. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. This is the first time that you and I have met, so to speak, but we have had a little text via chat because Eileen is going to talk to us about her partner, Scott, who tragically died from COVID. So this is going to be a sensitive one for both of us, I think. And we've had a little bit of a chat ahead of time just to make sure we're both comfortable. But without further ado, Eileen, I'll let you kind of introduce yourself and tell the listeners a little bit about what brought you into the club nobody wants to be a member of.
Yeah. Hi there, everyone. My name is Eileen O'Brien. As Rosie said, I lost my partner, Scott, to COVID in October 2021. So it was after a kind of period of over a month in ICU. So basically, it was just a case of, it was one of these things. He caught COVID and probably like everyone else thought, oh, I'll be fine. He'll be okay after a few weeks. He'll feel ill and whatever else. And he just basically deteriorated very quickly.
Yeah.
And got to the stage where I thought, right, I need to phone the GP, get the ambulance out, and he was very reluctant to go into hospital because obviously we all know the horror stories we heard of people getting into hospital with COVID and not coming back out. Basically, we all know that we all had to go through that kind of period of time of being scared. The ambulance came out, and I think immediately, in fact, it was a paramedic that came out, the GP's paramedic that came out, and immediately she came running in. We need an ambulance now. His oxygen level was down to 36.
Shit.
So immediately called an ambulance to get blue lighted into the hospital. And after kind of, I think it was the next day, I managed to get a video call with him. And he seemed okay. He was obviously struggling, with the oxygen level being so low. But it was a bit of a video call, and it was just a general kind of. He was able to talk to me. Put it that way, he was able to talk. It was just a case of, right. The doctors told him. So he said to me, the doctors told him, you'll be in for about a week. So I thought, yeah, okay.
That's familiar.
Yeah, you'll be in for about a week. You'll be fine after a week. It's like, yeah, because I had to say, well, how long do you think you'll be in for? And he said, yeah, I'll be in for a week. I think it was at that point we weren't allowed to go in and visit, so everything was being done over calls, basically phoning up each day, getting updates from the hospital. Everything was okay, and all the rest of it. So I think a week, and this is a bit I'm going to struggle with.
That's okay. You take your time.
So a week after, I think it was about 4 or 5 days. It's round about the 4th or 5th of October, because he went in on the 28th of September, and the 4th or 5th of October, I received a phone call at 5:30 in the morning, which, like anyone else, if you get a phone call from hospital at that time in the morning, you know it's not good. And he basically said, we have to intubate him. So he said, look, we can't wait, we need to do it now. It's a case of it's now, we need to do it now. And he said, I've got him here, would you like to speak to him before we do it? And at that point, he couldn't even speak to me. It was like you could hear him gasping for breath, and he was trying to speak to me, and he couldn't. And all I could keep saying, try to be the kind of, yeah, everything will be fine, you'll be okay, don't be scared. I know you're scared, but don't worry about it, everything will be fine. And that was the last time I actually spoke to him, physically spoke to him. So he was intubated on the 4th of October, and I think a couple of days later, this is again after the kind of daily kind of, how is he today, and kind of the kind of daily kind of calls from the hospital. He says, you can actually come in and visit.
What did you think at that point? That must have felt.
I didn't. I'll be honest. It didn't. I wasn't prepared for how horrific it was going to be. I'll be honest.
You probably just felt elation that you were going to get.
Yeah, I was going to get to see him, because it's like, it's one of these ones. I know it's a really stupid thing to say, but you see all the kind of these things on TV programs about what it's like in an ICU ward, and you don't think how bad it's going to be until you actually go in. So at that point, his mum lives in Spain, so she'd come over by that point for obvious reasons, because we knew how serious it was, and his sister as well had come over. She just lives fairly locally from about 2 hours away. They were kind of getting up, but the first day we went in, it was obviously you had to get, the full mask and everything, full PPE and everything. And it's just that kind of being told there's a high risk, obviously, because you're getting into a COVID ward. So that goes through your mind and as well. And then I was okay until I walked in and I just seen I'm hooked up to all those machines, all the equipment, the bleeping, everything, all that. That was just the worst. I know it's obviously bad losing them, but that was like one of the worst images that still stay with me is seeing everything, seeing them all hooked up and not having that, being able to kind of speak to them or communicate with them properly. Yeah, basically, yeah. So that was the kind of main, that was kind of horrific. But obviously, yourself, you've got to kind of do it. It's not pleasant doing it, but you've just got to do it, basically.
Keep your shit together.
Yeah, basically, and then fall apart. Fall apart when you leave, basically. So it's kind of in and going, yeah, how are you? And talking to them, and as if it was like a normal conversation, and trying to keep them motivated and going, right, okay, you can do this, you can come out of this, and I was having a joke, with the nurses, things like these stupid things like his feeding tube. I was like, oh, what's he having today? Is he having pizza today? just things like that. Just really normal, like somebody else out with that situation would go, that's really sick saying that, but it's that kind of having that kind of dark sense of humour just to keep you going, basically.
Kind of a dark humour.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just things like that. You kind of think, oh God, I shouldn't be saying this. Things like that. So I think it was after maybe a few weeks. I mean, he'd had the reason he reacted probably, I would say, so badly was because during lockdown he was diagnosed with nephrotic syndrome.
What's that?
Which is a condition. It started off, it was really strange. He started to get this rash on his legs. And he kept saying, well, it was because I was crawling about and I lost space. But he worked in IT, so he says, I was crawling about and I lost it, and he scratched his legs. So he just thought that obviously he got a little infection in his legs, right? So he wasn't really concerned about it. But this rash just was not clearing up, and it was actually getting worse. And I thought, right, there's something not right here. So I kept saying to him, look, phone the doctor. Yeah, it was the middle of COVID. Don't want to annoy it. They've got enough to do, and they kind of understandably. So eventually did phone and they said, right, we think there's an infection, we'll give you some antibiotics, but it just still was not clearing up. Then he started to retain all this fluid and he was really, really, swelling up. And I thought, right, there's something definitely not right here. So eventually went back, and after much kind of to and froing, they discovered it was this nephrotic syndrome, which is a condition that affects your kidneys.
Okay.
So basically he had to get this treatment, but in order to get this treatment, he had to ensure he had his second COVID jab to protect him as much as possible, because this treatment effectively shuts down your immune system for several months, and then it reboots, and that's when this kind of apparently it helps cure, or not cure it, or helps the condition. So I was obviously concerned, thinking, right, this is quite concerning that you're not going to have an immune system, and this is all going on in the world. It's like, this is all going on, and you're going to be really kind of exposed to catching this.
Actually, when you said October 2021, I'd almost, because my sort of experience of, the horror in COVID was March 2020. But actually, looking back, of course, yes, it kind of had a massive resurgence, didn't it? Because weddings were being cancelled again and all that sort of, it all merged.
Yeah, because it did. It kind of calmed down for a little bit, didn't it? And then it suddenly kind of, I think, they became people, I don't mean complacent, but people were like, oh, we've had it for a few months, so that it's calming down now. And then all of a sudden,
we got a bit carried away.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, like winter, I think it was over like winter and things like that, and everything started kind of.
When we had to socialise in summer.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Sorry, I've taken you off on a
No, not at all. Not at all.
Quite relevant, because yes, as soon when you said October, I thought, oh gosh, and even though I have your dates written down, I thought,
yeah,
I've kind of not forgotten. I suppose you do a little bit. that it had got so bad at that time. Sorry, could you continue?
No,
Eileen?
that's fine. Yeah, so basically I had to get this treatment. It was like a drip, really, and it effectively shuts down your immune system for that 3 months, and then things kick in again. So it was just completely ironic that I think it was towards the end of the 3 months. Supposedly this treatment lasts 3 months, and then obviously your system kicks back in again. He caught COVID just at that end of that 3 months period, which is like,
he couldn't have the COVID jab because of this.
no, he did get it there. Yeah, they had to. He basically had to ensure he'd had both jabs before they would give them the treatments, because I think they thought at the time, obviously, if he's had both COVID jabs, then you know, he would be protected. But obviously, I don't think we knew enough at that time. I think everybody thought, yeah, you'll get the jab, you'll be fine, and all the rest of it. Yeah, so it's one of those ones that kind of. But the thing was as well, he was going into work as well during this period, which again, I don't think he should have been doing. But he said, no, I don't need to isolate, which I don't believe for a second to this day that he wasn't told he needed to isolate. But anyway, yeah, basically, yeah. So I'm annoyed at him for that. I did that, but that's just, you know, in hindsight, you don't think. I think a lot of the times, you know, you're hearing all the stories in the news about like people dying of COVID, and you don't think it would affect your own family like that, and you think, oh, if I catch it, I'll be fine. I'm okay. I'm strong enough. I'm okay. I'm not vulnerable and everything else. You know, you just don't think it's going to affect you. That. So I think it was a case of, yeah, I'll be fine. I'll be okay. I'll be ill for a few weeks. I'll be okay.
I mean, I'm nodding my head, which the listeners can't see. And because John and I had this exact same conversation, we were up in London as the news started to break at my birthday night out early March, and we had the conversation, you know, oh, look, it's, you know, it's a flu, it's, you know, it's horrible, awful, but it will be fine, you know. And yeah, it's the complacency and also the Russian roulette aspect of COVID, because I got it at the same time and I was fine. John, you know, spent a month in ICU. And I mean, look, talking to people about their experience of losing somebody to COVID has pushed me back into that time. And I think when you're in it and you're kind of in the eye of the storm, as it were, you don't really have time to reflect on how horrible it was and terrifying. And we're all sort of now thinking, oh, you know, it's over. But actually, I would hazard a guess that more of us than realise have got some trauma from that time. And you know, you more than anybody, of course. But yeah, it took an enormous toll on everybody and people during that time. It really is a kind of unique loss.
Yeah, because I think even if you've not been directly affected by anyone in your family suffering badly with it, I think it's a case of, because it's living in that environment for those 2 years, I think it's obviously affecting everyone's mental health as well. So that was, you know, probably, you know, bad enough in itself, having to think, right, I can't even go outside, can't socialise, can't see my friends and family, you know, and all the things that you're restricted from doing for those effectively. In fact, was it not? Well, it was over 2 years, really, wasn't it? Really,
really.
Yeah. So I mean, that's
weeks ago. I mean, it's still lurking.
So it's still around. I mean, it's not something that's going to go away anytime soon, but it's one of those things that's, you just think, you just want it to get, you don't want to hear about it anymore, if you know what I mean. It's like, no, just enough. Exactly, yeah. So, yeah.
But tell me, Eileen, sorry, I'm enjoying this conversation because we keep going off and having a little chat, but so if you don't mind me taking you back a little bit to this moment.
Sure.
So he's now caught COVID at this point. Well, how did you know at what point did you realise that he had COVID? And at what point did you realise that it wasn't going to just kind of get better on its own?
Yeah. Well, it kind of been having like kind of the usual kind of cold and kind of flu type symptoms for a few days, and I think he says, like, I really don't feel well, and he'd been out with the dog. This is my last dog, who also passed away the same year as my husband, my partner. Yeah. So double, you know, double fun. 2021 was wonderful for me. So anyway, so he had the dog out for a walk, and I just remember this distinctly. And Scott was never one for being ill. He was kind of never really, you know, just when he just got on with it. If he had the cold or whatever, and he would go on with it. So he came in from walking the dog. This was kind of early evening, and he just came in and he's like, I really don't feel well, and he just collapsed on the floor. which I thought, right, and so he passed out, completely passed out on the floor. So I'm like, oh my God. But he did obviously came round to after a few minutes, and I was like, right, that's not right. It's something not right. And he said he feels quite out of breath. So obviously had to go and get the testing and everything done. And I obviously had to do that at that time. And then that's when he tested positive. So it was just basically over a couple of days, he was just on the couch, just not feeling right. And then it got to the stage where, when I realised things were getting quite serious, where he would get out, try and get out of bed to come downstairs, and he would collapse on the floor. So he couldn't even get out of bed. He wasn't eating, which is something, Scott loved his food, so yeah, so as everyone does, so, and he just was not eating, couldn't eat, could barely drink, and couldn't, it was one point I had to help him get dressed, because he's like, nope, I want to get out of bed, I need to get out of bed. I went, you're not well, you can't just get out of bed. And he just wouldn't listen, and every time he tried to get out of bed, he was collapsing on the floor. So that's like the third occasion of that happening. I think it was the third or fourth day, and I was like, right, I'm phoning the doctor. He's like, no, just leave it. And then that's when obviously they came out and did the oxygen test, and that was him basically rushed in.
And obviously you've spoken a little bit about him going into hospital and the video calls and the daily calls with the hospital. I remember those daily calls, and you sort of live for them. And I assume it was probably similar at the time he was in hospital, but there's no guarantee of when they're coming. You wait all day for this kind of little piece of information that it becomes all you can think about is this phone call and what they're going to tell you. And you're sort of stuck in this sort of frozen time, aren't you, where you don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And obviously he took a significant turn for the worse and was intubated. Now I kind of spoke with recognition when you said about him going in for a week, because that's exactly what they said to John. And at the time when John went into hospital, it was much earlier, so we sort of blindly thought, oh, okay, brilliant, this is all going to be sorted out in a week,
Yeah.
And obviously he went into the induced coma, and then he never woke up again. Is that right?
That's
so
right.
Never got to see him alive again. And that's, I talk about the face tingles. I've gone, like, it's making me feel quite emotional, and I'm hesitant to do it because it feels like I'm intruding. But if you wouldn't just tell us a little bit about what that felt like to not be able to see him, and I don't know whether you wrote it. You tell me.
Yeah.
I'm guessing your story, and I want to hear it from you.
Yeah, if I'm honest, obviously at the time, but if I'm honest with myself now, as soon as they told me he was going to be intubated, I just knew. I don't know what it was in my brain. I just knew that he wasn't coming out of it. I don't know what it was. It's just this instinct I had that he wasn't coming out. So for me personally, I think I started grieving for him then.
Yeah, I understand that.
Because although we were getting in to see him every day, almost every day, that it wasn't him.
Yeah.
It was just this shell lying in the bed. It just wasn't him. It wasn't him. And then just having that kind of, I think it was a kind of, we were waiting. It was almost like a waiting game, because we were told, I think it was, I can't remember, because that was like 4 weeks he was in the hospital. And he was on between 80 and 100% oxygen all the time. It was like high oxygen he was being given all the time, so that we knew that obviously that was really serious. It never really dropped. It was kind of, some days it dropped. That was a kind of, we've got a win today, it's dropped below 80%, but most occasions it was way up at the kind of 80s to 100.
Yeah.
So obviously had the issue with these kidneys, which he had to get kidney dialysis as well. I don't know if that's normal for ICU patients. I don't know, but
for John, his kidneys are thing to pick up, and he was in full organ failure, and the sort of reboot, as it were, being a tech guy. They were his kidneys, and again, I don't know if that's COVID specific or ICU specific.
And he also caught sepsis as well while he was in. So that was a kind of extra addition to the problem. So as soon as they basically said that, and also he ended up with a collapsed lung as well. So he just everything, it was just everything was against him. So we had a couple of conversations with the consultant. One of them, obviously, one of the first conversations, he was, and I'll always praise him for telling us this. He didn't sugarcoat it at all. He was very honest, and he said, look, this very unlikely he's going to come out of this alive, but we have to just, we don't give up easily. We have to keep trying, try everything we can. And I think, I can't remember if it's the last conversation was again said it's unlikely, and if he did come out of it, it would be life-changing for him. Which, again, I know it's a horrible thing to say, but
that's not what he would have wanted.
That's not what he would have wanted.
Yeah. I keep referring back to my experience, and we did speak at the beginning about a sort of survivor's guilt element to this, because I don't want to make it all about me.
No, not at all, at all.
But it's, yeah, I do remember that call actually, and they said, you need to prepare for the worst, but you continue to hope for the best. And the conversation about, we don't know the damage to his brain, we don't know the long-term damage to his organs, and actually, even once he had come out of the coma, we didn't know how severe the damage would be. And I can remember, Googling, hospital beds and speaking to a builder about coming to make some provisions, because I was very aware that John also would have been mortified to find himself in that position.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, I don't know, but it's to be given that phone call and know that even if they're going to survive, their life is going to be, just not what it was.
Yeah. I know, because it just made me think of, obviously, is it Kate Garraby's husband?
Yes, it did. Yes,
it made me think of that. It made me think of that, and I thought that must be really hard for someone having to look after someone in that position. I mean, I know she's done it, and also she's obviously, she's doing it, but I know Scott wouldn't have wanted that for me. He wouldn't have wanted that.
The kind of indefiniteness of it as well, because you wouldn't ever know whether they were going to recover. It's a really, it's a thought thing. Went on too long, but I just, were you able to go in, but fully? Yeah. So could you touch him or hold him at all?
Yeah, that time we could, because we weren't sure whether we were allowed to. We were obviously, that was just like, it was like masks. We didn't leave the full kind of, so it was just like the kind of not the standard blue mask that you get, it was the kind of heavier ones that we had to wear. And when obviously they said at the time that there will be a risk, because if someone's ventilator blows, then you'd have to isolate and everything else. So it's that, always having that kind of that kind of fear, that kind of fear as well, and having to go in like thinking I'm going in. But we were allowed beside his bed. We were allowed to touch him and and things like that. So that was a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Yeah. And how did they tell you that he died? Were you there, or did you have to have?
I still feel. I mean, I know it's not obviously one of these things. You go in every day and you think, I need a break. I can't do this. I need to replenish my energy. So I think I remember obviously get the phone call. It was the 28th of October, and again, a phone call from the hospital. You think, right, okay, what's going on here? And it was at 12 o'clock. I remember it being distinctly, because I was just not far. I was working from home, and I still work from home. And I get the phone call at 12 o'clock. I thought, right, okay, this is not right. And she said, we don't think he's going to survive the day. We think it's time to basically switch the machines off. So I had to then phone, at that point his mum had gone home, back home, because we were kind of at that stage. We think, right, he's going to be in for a while, there's no point in you staying here that length of time, and we just thought that would be it. I think she'd been home, I can't remember if it was a week before or just a few days before, I can't remember now. So I had to phone his sister, who, as I say, she lives about 2 hours away from Glasgow, from obviously where the hospital was. So I had to phone her, like, you need to go over now. You need to leave now. We don't know if. So when I got to the hospital, they said, look, obviously we're not going to do it right now. I says, look, can you wait until his sister's here? Please, can you wait till his sister's here?
That was kind. Take your time, okay? We can break if you need to.
And they said, look, yes, we can, but there's a chance he might pass before, she arrives. So I was like sitting, I just remember, and I'm not a religious person at all. I'm not religious at all.
Whatever you grab her.
But I sat there in a bed and I prayed. I went, please hang on, just hang on. Just until she arrives, just hang on. She did arrive. Thankfully, we were able to spend a bit of time with him. And then they said, look, it's time.
I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Do you want to stop? You take it. It's okay. I know it's difficult. You're doing really well.
So yeah, we had to obviously leave the room until they did what they needed to do. They had to obviously just get everything ready. And I think we get back in the room. Well, they switched everything off, and that had just seen everything go down. And I just remember the nurse saying, because I was trying not to really think about it too much, but obviously I knew. And I just remember the nurse saying, "That's him away. That's him gone." And it literally took. It must have been only about maybe five minutes or something. It was very, very quick.
He was ready, wasn't he? His body
very, very quick, yeah.
And I guess at that moment, you maybe didn't feel it at the time, but the fact that his body gave up so quickly after the support was taken away, that you gave him that kind of gift of release, I guess, and set him free. But it's a very small consolation when you've watched the person that you've loved for 32 years die in front of you, Eileen, and that is a heartache that is just unimaginable to so many people, thankfully. I'm having a little cry here. I can really feel the emotion in your voice. And I just wanted, I mentioned it as you said it, but the fact that even in the midst of all of this, you thought about his sister. And I think one thing I learned from my guests is the level of compassion we're able to find in our darkest moments. And you must take a little credit for that. Once we've gathered ourselves, oh my God. If you're able to, what about afterwards? Because were you able to have funerals back then? Forgive my kind of ignorance on the timelines of this. And were you able to sort of get support for your grief in a inverted commas normal fashion? Or
yeah, at that time things were back to some sort of normality, so we were able to have a proper funeral service. So it was like kind of just a cremation we had. So it was just a very simple service, with unconventional songs for his service. So we had Live and Let Die, but the Guns N' Roses version. So he was very into, he loved rock music, absolutely loved rock music. So we had
very similar to my life husband.
I know. I actually found that quite amusing when you said that in your text about my alive husband. My alive husband.
As a sort of bit of a joke, and it's stuck. And thank you. Offended.
No, that's all. That's all. So we had Live and Let Die going in when he was obviously. I know people think, why am I laughing at this? But obviously that was his kind of sense of humour.
And also the I don't know whether you saw, I had a wonderful lady called Nikki Outlaw on, and her husband was taken to the creme in the Ghostbusters car, and then the music. I know
that's brilliant.
Somewhere I'll see.
Yeah. So we had that, and then we had when he was obviously getting taken in with Spirit in the Sky.
Oh.
Which it was like that. This is it was actually his sister that chose all of the songs, and I thought that was really very appropriate. But the last one was like not November Rain, again, a Guns N' Roses song, which very
One of
kind
my
of,
favourites.
which is a brilliant, it was like, but that just broke me when that came on. It was like, oh,
Oh, it
no,
was
but it's
Can
a
you listen
brilliant
to it
song.
now?
What's that?
Can you listen to it now?
No, I
No.
can't listen to any of them now, to be honest with you.
That's the thing, is you pick songs you love and then you think, well, I could never listen
I can't
to that.
listen to that. Yeah, I know.
John had Tina Turner, the Rolling one at Sarah's funeral because it was
Rolling in the Deep. Was it Rolling in the... No, that's Adele, isn't it? So that's, I know what you're talking about now, is it now?
Kind of fans, I'm sorry. And we have to be quite careful, like if you go to weddings and parties and stuff, because that's a banger. So
yeah.
No, the things we do and things you don't think you'll have to prepare for as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm glad that at least you were able to give him a send-off and be by people that loved him and love you, because as I've gone through my own journey and watched others, I do realise now the importance of that. And when Ben died, although I still don't actually have a body for Ben, because I don't know how much of my story you know, but he died scuba diving.
Yeah.
But I still did, to all intents and purposes, a funeral.
Yeah, I have one.
It was very important, and I had my children there, even though they were very young, because we didn't get to say goodbye, and it was important that we did. Now, I wanted to just ask you a little bit, because you mentioned intrusive imagery that you're having, of seeing him in the ICU, and I never got to see John, but there was a TV program on at the time, and he was in the background of it. So whilst I didn't have the horror of going in, I sort of know what you're talking about a little bit. But were you able to access any therapy for this? Because a lot of people are using, a few people within our tribe are trying this EDMR therapy and having really positive results from it. I don't know whether it's something you've come across.
Yeah, no, I haven't actually. I think it's one of those things that I try not to think about it too much. So it's kind of try not to kind of touch on it, or try not to think about it too much. And I mean, it's like that trigger of the getting the phone call at 5:30. That's always a trigger that always gets me. No matter how many times I've actually told people that story, it does it every time. So it's that little, and you're probably, anyone that's been through this journey, there is, despite the fact it's, over 18 months down the line, you're still going to have those certain things trigger. For example, I mean, Scott, which just shows you what kind of, he's a bit of a sick sense of humour as well. He decided to send me a selfie of him with the CPAP mask on.
Oh, I've got one of John.
Yeah. So thanks for that. Thanks for that. Thanks. And I've got that in my phone. Still got that in my phone. And although the image really, that's a horrible, horrible image, I can't delete it. And I know that sounds really strange, but I just can't do it. So if I see anything on a TV programme or anything like that somebody's got that mask on, or that there is someone in that kind of ICU environment, I just can't watch it. I'm like, no, can't watch it, because I started watching a TV show, I think on Netflix or something like that, about a month ago. And I can't even remember what the TV show was called, to be honest with you. And it was something to do with a kind of viral thing or something like that anyway. And the next minute they showed the woman and I was like, no, I can't watch that. Switch it off. I can't watch that, because it's that kind of whole, brings it back, brings back that horrible.
I was watching something and they fished a body out of the water once, and I didn't look away in time, and it really jolted me. I really, really unsettled. And I, like your 5:30 call, mine is a door knock, when you're watching a drama and the police knock.
Yeah.
Desensitizing a little bit. Initially, if the police car flashing lights went past the house or anything like that, I was, sort of but yeah, I'm 5 and a few months in now, and I don't know if it's a consolation, because I'm telling you that you're going to have these probably forever, but they get less painful. I can still have the power to strike you down. They do me sometimes, but they do get less frequent and they do get less awful. But I talk a lot about that kind of coexisting with the grief and have you managed to find happiness again? Are you happy? Have you rebuilt a life, or are you still really kind of?
Yeah, well, I'm trying. I'm obviously and like everyone else that's been through like the initial kind of probably 6 months to a year, it's just horrific. You just think, what is the point? And that's exactly you have the kind of the dark thoughts. Think, what purpose have I got in my life now? What is the point in my life now? It's trying to get out of that mindset, which took me a long time. It took me a really long time, and I think, right, okay, let's take stock here. What have I got? Although, I've got obviously we actually adopted another dog a couple of months before he passed, so I've now got a very crazy German Shepherd.
Oh, I love German Shepherds.
Who gets me out of bed every morning. So she's been a little rock as well. She's, obviously I've had the support of friends and family, but, she's like, right, okay, Mum, come on, out of bed. I need to go for a walk. It's get me out of bed each morning. And
your dog's done for you what my kids did, because without them, I don't know where I stay, if I'm honest.
Exactly. No, and that's exactly my mindset as well. I don't know. I don't know where I would be if I didn't have that kind of motivation. And then going back to work as well, that helped also, because I think I went back. Now a lot of people think, oh, you came back too soon. I think I went back after the New Year period, back in January. So it was only 3 months after he passed away.
You were able to work from home, weren't you?
Yeah.
That must have been a help, because
yeah.
I do some talks on bereavement as well, and one of the key ones is about returning to work and that kind of feeling of people being under the microscope and people business. And it's very, I felt like I wasn't working at the time, but I was doing school run, and school were very nice and let me go a little bit early initially. But as somebody, you got to face the world, haven't you?
Exactly.
And you feel a bit like, oh my God, you're a widow under the spotlight.
Yeah. So that kind of had the conversation with my manager, and even my manager said, "Are you sure you're?" In fact, I remember having a call with my manager and HR, and they basically said, "Are you sure you're ready to come back?" I went, "No." I went, "I'm not ready to come back." I went, "But I need to come back." I went, "For my own sanity, I need to come back." I says, "I need to have some sort of purpose in my life." I says, if I don't come back, I says, I need to find something. It was almost like a distraction. It was like, that's basically what it was. It was find a distraction rather than, it's okay sitting with your grief and doing that, but doing that 24/7.
But in little pieces, you can't.
Yeah, you can't do it. You can't do it 24/7. So having that kind of distraction, right, at least that for that 8 or so many hours a day, because I was on obviously the leave. I've kind of this kind of stage return kind of thing, phase return. So I was only working, I think 3 days a week. So that helped. That definitely did help, and obviously the support of my manager, my colleagues as well. That makes a difference as well. I think when you're dealing with grief as well.
It really does. And actually, I might be interested in talking to you. Obviously, it sounds like you had a really positive experience of your return to work, and it's that structure, isn't it? And having purpose that you describe, because I often, my youngest daughter was only 6 months old, which was both a blessing and a curse in the eye of the storm. But the older two, I had my adopted daughter at the time, they would go to school. And I thought, if I didn't have Tabby, who I had a responsibility to get out, to get fresh air, and also my dog, I have a dog as well. How easy would it have been to slide into the not getting dressed, somebody pick the kids up, bottle of wine at lunchtime, whereas I knew that I had to drive, and I did have a problem with alcohol, but it was kept under control, I suppose, by virtue of the fact that I, even in the midst of it, would not have driven with the kids in the car if I had drinks. So and John, he would agree with you, because when his first wife Sarah died, he went back to work relatively quickly as well, and she actually died in the November, not the same year. And he said it kind of saved him, because you went in and I think he was quite grumpy to be around, but he would just go and get his head down and get the work done, and it was a way of avoiding it, I suppose. But it is, and grief is so individual for everybody, but we are seeing sort of commonalities between people, particularly people who do make that choice to, like you say, you get very dark and you start having some really horrible thoughts. And
exactly.
And me too, right? Me too. I went to the doctors. I was really scared at one point. And then you have to make a choice. And I've done this numerous times throughout the journey. It's not one choice and your life is fixed. You have to make lots and lots of choices, and some of them are really scary. But you have to do it for you, and doing it for the dog or the kids or your parents or whoever, it will only take you so far, and eventually you do have to do it for yourself. And that's what separates, I think, a lot of the people that come on here, because they have made that choice. Well, I'm pleased that that you are able to see a future for yourself, and that you aren't trapped in that darkness. I think it would be such a waste of such a vibrant and wonderful personality, and I think that our listeners are going to really like hearing you talk, because I really enjoy talking to you, and I wish you lots and lots of happiness in your future, and healing, and recovering from what you have been through is not going to come easy, and it's going to take time, but that.
Yeah.
And it's I assume you would be best friend as well, and
Yes, exactly.
it's a multiple loss, isn't it? It's not the partner,
Mhm.
that I saw a diagram once, and it's sort of the immediate loss and all the things that you lose around it, and it's
Exactly.
your best
It's like
friend.
your whole life. It's like your whole world just, it feels as if it's just ended.
Yeah,
Yeah, or what, or the world that you knew, or you kind of think, right, you kind of had this in your head of what your life would be like, or we'll grow old together, and
yeah, your
all
future.
that kind of thing, that you think, and there's always this image that still sticks with me. That I just remember Scott saying one day, he says, "Oh, we're going to be that little old couple sitting on the bench next to, on the pier, with an ice cream."
Yeah, and it's absolutely heartbreaking that that isn't how your story turned out. It really is, and nothing anybody says or does will ever make that okay for you.
Yeah,
But by coming here and sharing your experience so beautifully and so bravely, and making me cry, what you have done is you have given people who may be entering into this life a little bit of hope that that darkness does lift, and
Mm.
you're also sharing the vulnerability of what it was like, because we've heard snippets of experiences of deaths from COVID, because obviously it was all over the news, but
Yeah,
very rarely have we heard from the person who was left behind, and not in such detail, and unless they're a celebrity or something. So I hope, by giving you an opportunity to talk about it, I hope it's been therapeutic.
Yeah.
And I said to you before, this is yours, okay? We will do what you want with it, all right?
Mhm.
But yeah, thank you for being part
Thank you.
of this incredible thing that we're doing. We couldn't do it without people like you, and we are very grateful. And so, yeah, I'll stop. I'll stop gushing.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell my story. It's appreciated, and if I can help someone else
Yeah, and I
through
think,
this journey, then that's all the better, because obviously you guys are doing the same. You're helping other people as well. So
that you may even find it helps yourself. You may feel a little bit tired and jarred afterwards, but
yeah,
afterwards you feel quite free. So without any further ado, I will just thank you properly for coming in. And listeners, we will be talking about Eileen's episode on the Friday after it airs. So I will remind you near the time, but it'd be really interesting to have people's thoughts on it. So thank you once again for listening. And as always, do take care of yourselves.